You picture a Swede and you see a calm face, don't you? Not rushed, not frayed at the edges the way you feel by Wednesday afternoon. That calm is real, and I went to find out where it comes from. Here is what I learned after years of driving through this country and getting it wrong more than once. Swedes are not calmer because they earn more or work less than everyone else. They are calmer because their entire daily life is built around a single quiet idea that most of us were never taught, and that idea is completely free to copy. By the end of this, I am going to hand you the exact practice, the one a Norwegian playwright named in 1859 in Sweden turned into a national habit, and I will show you how to use it this week, even if you never leave the town you are sitting in right now. Because this is not really about moving, it is about a way of living that you can start on Thursday. I remember the first thing that broke my assumptions. It was a Tuesday, mid-morning, in a small town called Falun, and the hardware store simply closed its counter. The two men working it walked to the back, poured coffee, cut a bun in half, and sat down. No apology. No sign that read back in 10 minutes. Just an understanding shared by everyone in that shop that this was normal and this was protected. I stood there like a tourist, and I was one. For most of my life, I believed the busy places were the successful places. I believed the country that moved fastest was winning. I built years of my life around that belief, and I paid for it in a way I will get to. Sweden is a place that showed me, road by road, town by town, how wrong that belief was and how expensive it had been. So let me take you down those roads. The first word you need is lagom. You will hear it everywhere once you know it, and you will never see it advertised, because it cannot be sold. Lagom means, roughly, just the right amount. Not too little, not too much. Enough. I first heard it explained by a woman named Karin who rented me a room in Dalarna, the region in the middle of the country. I complimented the size of her kitchen and she frowned, almost embarrassed, and said it was lagom. Not big, not small, correct. And I realized she was not describing the kitchen. She was describing a way of measuring a life. Here is where the history matters, because lagom is not a marketing slogan invented last decade. Linguists trace the word to old communal life, to the way villages shared resources around the fire and the harvest. The folk story you will hear, and I heard it 3 separate times from 3 separate people, is that lagom comes from the phrase laget om, meaning around the team, the passing of a shared cup so that everyone drank a fair portion and no one drank it dry. Language experts will tell you that origin is probably folklore rather than fact. But the fact that Swedes tell that story about themselves tells you everything about the value underneath it. Take enough. Leave enough for the next person. Now, think about what the opposite belief has done to the rest of us. We were sold more square footage, more hours, more upgrades, more of everything, always. And I want you to notice something that took me years to see. The countries that chased more the hardest are not the countries with the calmest faces. They are the countries where people my age arrive at retirement exhausted, with a bigger house than they can clean and a schedule they cannot remember agreeing to. Lagom is the antidote, and it costs nothing. When Karin said her kitchen was enough, she was not settling. She was refusing to be sold a bigger one she did not need. That refusal is the root of the calm you see on Swedish faces. But refusing to want more is only half of it, because a philosophy in your head does nothing if your working day still eats you alive. So the real question is how a whole country built lagom into the one place most of us feel the most pressure. The job, that is where the second word comes in. And this one you can smell before you understand it. Fika. Everyone who writes about Sweden mentions fika, and almost everyone gets it wrong. They call it a coffee break. It is not a coffee break. A coffee break is something you grab. Fika is something you stop for. There is a difference, and the difference is the whole point. Fika is the deliberate act of stopping, sitting down, usually with other people, having coffee and something sweet, and not doing anything else. not eating at your desk, not scrolling, not half working, stopping. Most Swedish workplaces have it twice a day, mid-morning and mid-afternoon, and it is not seen as slacking. It is seen as part of the work, because a rested mind does the afternoon better than a frayed one. Remember those two men in the hardware store in Falun? That was fika. I thought they were being lazy. They were doing exactly what their culture told them was right, and their culture is not poorer for it. That is the part that should stop you. Because here is a number that broke the story open for me. In 2015, in the city of Gothenburg, a nursing home called Svartedalens ran a controlled trial. They cut nurses to a 6-hour working day with no cut in pay, and they measured what happened over roughly 18 months. The results, published and picked over by researchers and reported around the world, showed the staff took fewer sick days, reported far better health, and had more energy for the people they cared for. The patients were looked after better, not worse. Now, the honest part, the part the viral headlines skipped. The trial cost money because they had to hire extra staff to cover the shorter shifts, and the city ultimately did not roll it out everywhere for that reason. Critics used that to say it failed. But read what the researchers actually found, and you see something more useful than a slogan. When you give people genuine rest, their health improves so much that a chunk of the cost comes back in fewer sick days and lower turnover. The rest was not the indulgence. The exhaustion was the expense. That is fika, scaled up to a policy. And it points at a truth most of us were taught to ignore. Working longer is not the same as living better, and it is very often not even the same as working better. So what does this mean for you, specifically, sitting where you are? It means the guilt you feel when you stop is not a personal flaw. It was installed. Swedes were taught the opposite lesson, that a genuine pause is a right and a tool, and you can see the results on the calmest faces in Europe. You can reclaim that lesson without moving. You can build one real fika into your day, the same shape those nurses were given, a true stop, and I will show you exactly how before we finish. But I need to be honest with you about something, because this is the point where my own story stops being flattering. For a long time, I did not believe any of this. I thought it was soft. I thought calm was for people who had given up on ambition, and that belief cost me more than money. So the deeper question is not what Swedes do. It is why we were ever convinced that the opposite was success, and who benefited from convincing us. Because someone did. Let me take you further out, past the towns and onto the open land, because this is where I found the thing that changed how I understood the whole country. I was driving north of Uppsala, and I saw a family walking across what looked to me an outsider, like private farmland, backpacks, kids, a dog. They walked to a stand of birch trees, spread a blanket, picked berries, and had lunch. I actually slowed down because I was certain I was about to watch somebody get shouted off someone's property. Nobody came, nobody cared, they were not trespassing. They were doing something that has a name and, more astonishingly, a legal foundation. It is called allemansrätten, the right of public access, the freedom to roam. And when I understood how deep it goes, I understood why Swedes carry a kind of ease in their bodies that money cannot buy. Here is what allemansrätten actually means. In Sweden, you have the legal right to walk, hike, cycle, camp, swim, and pick wild berries and mushrooms on almost all land, including a great deal of private land, as long as you do not disturb and do not destroy. Those are the two rules. Do not disturb, do not destroy. You cannot camp in someone's garden or trample their crops. But the vast open country, the forests, the lake shores, the meadows, they are, in a real and daily sense, everyone's. And this is not a loophole or a quaint tradition. In 1994, this right of access was written into the Swedish constitution itself, into the instrument of government, one of the fundamental laws of the nation. The custom is centuries old, rooted in the days when ordinary people needed to cross the land to travel, to graze animals, to gather food to survive the winter. But Sweden did something most countries never did. Instead of fencing that old freedom away as the modern world arrived, it protected it in the highest law it has. Stop and feel the weight of that for a moment, because I did, standing on that road. In many of the places you and I have lived, nature is something you pay to access. You buy the lakeside lot. You pay the park fee. You are funneled onto a marked trail and warned off everything else. The message, repeated your whole life, is that the beautiful land belongs to whoever bought it, and you are a guest at best, an intruder at worst. A Swedish child grows up with the opposite message written into the constitution. The forest is yours to walk in. The lake is yours to swim in. The berries are yours to pick. You belong to this land, and it, in a sense, belongs to you. Imagine carrying that from the age of 5. Imagine the low hum of anxiety you would never develop because you never had to. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking because I thought it too, sitting in that car. You are thinking this is lovely for people who can pack up and move to Sweden, but you are 71, your knees are not what they were, and you are settled where you are and you are staying. So, let me turn to you directly, because I did not drive all these roads to make you feel left out of a country you are not going to move to. You do not need to move to steal the actual mechanism at work here. Because what allemansrätten really gives Swedes is not the land. It is a permission, a daily, unquestioned permission to be outside, in ordinary nature, without asking anyone, without paying anyone, as a normal part of life rather than a special trip. And that permission is something you can grant yourself right now wherever you live. And if you want a deeper map of exactly how these ideas connect the philosophy, the history, the practical framework for bringing all of it home, I have put the full picture into a book. It is called Map First, and it goes further than any single video can, tracing the roads I drove and the thinking I did in between, so you can build the whole structure in your own life rather than picking up pieces one at a time. The companion volumes, Deep Map and Geo Edge, go further still into the places and the evidence I could not fit here. You will find the details in the description below. Now, let me take you further into that permission and deeper into the land where it was born. Here is how you do it, and I want you to take this seriously because it is the load-bearing wall of the whole Swedish calm. Find the nearest patch of real outdoors to your front door, not a destination. Not a national park 2 hours away that you visit twice a year. The scruffy green space at the end of the road, the riverbank. The quiet streets lined with trees. The bench in the churchyard. And you claim it in your own mind the way a Swede claims the forest. It is yours. You go there daily, briefly, on purpose, in whatever weather, and you let it do the thing it is built to do. Because the evidence for what that does to a human being is not soft and it is not vague, and that is where the real secret of this whole video lives. That is the thing I promised you at the start, the practice with the name from 1859, and I am about to give it to you completely. But first I have to tell you who did not want you to have it, and why the calm on those Swedish faces has been quietly kept off the shelf where you shop. Let me be plain about the villain here. Because up to now I have been gentle, and you deserve better than gentle. Nobody sells you enough, there is no advertising budget behind lagom, no corporation profits when you decide your kitchen is already the right size, your car is already fine, your hours are already too long. An entire economy, the one most of us spent our working lives inside, depends on you believing the opposite of everything Sweden quietly practices. It depends on you believing that rest is laziness, that more is progress, that the land is something you rent access to, and that the tightness in your chest is just the normal price of a serious life. That belief was not an accident and it was not the truth. It was sold to you, and it was sold hard for decades, because your restlessness is somebody's revenue. The exhausted person buys more. The person who feels they never have enough keeps reaching for the next thing. The calm, contented Swede sitting on a shared blanket eating wild berries she picked for free is, frankly, a terrible customer. That is why you have heard of Swedish furniture and Swedish cars and Swedish pop music, but you were never taught the Swedish philosophy that makes the whole thing run. There is no money in teaching you to want less. And here is the cost of not knowing, the part that still stings when I say it out loud. I spent years, real years I cannot get back, chasing the bigger version of everything in the loud, fast, expensive places because I genuinely believed that was where life was best. I bought the postcard, I paid full price for it, and what I got at the end of that road was a calendar with no white space in it and a nervous system that had forgotten how to idle. Sweden did not give me anything I could not have had at home. It just showed me in the flesh, in the hardware store and the birch trees, that the thing I had been sold was a lie, and that the alternative had been sitting there, free, the entire time. So, let me give you the alternative now, fully. The secret finale I promised. The word is friluftsliv. Say it slowly, friluftsliv. It translates almost literally as free air life or open air life. And it is the deepest layer under everything I have shown you, deeper than lagom, deeper than fika, deeper even than the right to roam. Here is the buried history, the part that sounds like something dug out of an archive because it is. The word friluftsliv was first put into print by the Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen in a poem published in 1859. He used it to describe the value of spending time in remote places for the well-being of the mind and the spirit. From that single poem, the idea spread across Scandinavia and took root in Sweden as something close to a national article of faith, not a hobby, not a sport, a way of being a person. Friluftsliv is the simple, radical practice of spending time outdoors, in ordinary nature, regularly, in all seasons and in all weather, not to achieve anything, not to burn calories, not to reach a summit, but simply to be there. You have heard the Swedish saying, even if you did not know it was theirs. There is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. That is friluftsliv in one line. You do not wait for the perfect day. You dress for the day you have, and you go out into it, and that is the whole secret. Rain included, winter included, the dark included, and now the part that turns a nice idea into something you can actually stand on, because I know this audience, and I know you do not want a poem. You want to know if it is real. The research on this is now overwhelming, and it has a specific origin worth naming. In 2008, researchers in Japan, led by scientists studying what they called Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, ran controlled studies measuring what happened inside the human body during time spent among trees. They measured cortisol, the stress hormone, in saliva. They measured pulse rate and blood pressure. And across their field experiments, they found that time in a forest environment lowered cortisol, lowered pulse rates, and lowered blood pressure compared with the same time spent in a city. The nervous system, measured directly, shifted out of alarm and into rest. That is not a feeling. That is chemistry, on paper, in a peer-reviewed record. Since then, study after study across Europe and North America has pointed the same way. Even short, regular doses of ordinary green space are associated with lower stress, better sleep, better mood, and better cardiovascular markers. The number that stuck with me from research widely reported out of the United Kingdom is that spending around 2 hours a week in nature is linked to a meaningful boost in health and well-being. And it does not have to be 2 hours all at once. It can be 20 minutes at a time. It can be the scruffy green patch at the end of your road. Do you see what has happened here? The Swedes did not discover a secret hidden from science. They built their entire culture around a practice that science has now confirmed lowers the stress hormone in your blood, and they did it more than a century before anyone measured a single drop of cortisol. Ibsen named it in 1859. The forest confirmed it in 2008. And nobody put it on a shelf and sold it to you because you cannot bottle a walk in the rain. So here is exactly what to do this week, and I want it to be small enough that you cannot talk yourself out of it. You are going to practice friluftsliv, and you are going to do it where you already are. Pick one time of day. Morning is best because the light helps your sleep that night, but any time beats none. Every single day, you go outside into real open air for at least 20 minutes. Not the car, not the mall, outside where you can see sky and ideally something green. You do not take a task with you. You are not walking to the shop. You are not on a call. You are doing friluftsliv, which means the outdoors is the point, not the transport. You dress for the actual weather because that is the rule that separates the people who keep this up from the people who quit. There is no bad weather, only bad clothing. Cold morning, you put on the coat and go. Drizzle, you take the hat and go. The Swedes are not tougher than you. They are just better dressed, and they decided a long time ago that the weather does not get a vote on whether they live, and you claim your patch the way that family claimed the meadow north of Uppsala, that bench, that riverbank, that tree-lined street. In your own head, it is yours by your own private allemansrätten, and you visit it like it belongs to you, because in every way that matters to your nervous system, it does. Do that for 2 weeks, 20 minutes a day, and pay attention to your sleep and your temper. I am not going to promise you a new life. I am going to tell you what I found when I finally stopped chasing the loud places and started doing this myself, on quiet roads, in ordinary weather. The tightness in my chest that I had assumed was simply who I was. The background hum I thought came free with being a serious adult. It started to loosen. Not because I moved to Sweden. Because I finally did the one thing Sweden had been trying to show me the whole time. That is the truth. The brochures will never hand you because there is no commission in it. The calm on those Swedish faces was never a Swedish possession. It was a human birthright that one country simply refused to sell off, protected in its constitution, poured into its coffee breaks, named by a poet, and confirmed, more than 100 years later, in the chemistry of the blood. They kept it. Most of the world let it be taken, and now you know exactly how to take it back, and it costs you nothing but the willingness to put on a coat and step outside. You just recovered something that was quietly being kept off your shelf your whole adult life, and the price of it was zero the entire time. You are not the kind of person who is content to be sold a comfortable lie about where life is best and how much it should cost you. If you were, you would not have stayed with me this long. You look past the brochure. That is who you are, and it is rarer than you think. So, tell me one thing in the comments, and be specific because I read them. What is the patch of outdoors nearest your front door? The one you are going to claim as your own this week. A park, a river, a scruffy field, a single tree on a quiet street. Name it, and tell me where in the world you are watching from, because I want to see how far this stretches. That family in the birch trees would never know they started this, but you can. And if you want to keep looking past the postcard with the rest of us, stay with me, because the next road I am taking you down is a country everyone praises for being happy, where I found something in the winter darkness that completely changed what I thought happiness even meant. I will see you there. You know that hardware store where the two men poured their coffee? I couldn't fit everything into this video. So, inside my membership, the Wandering Map Society, I walk you through building that fika ritual into your own week, right where we left off. There you can ask me your own questions, and I answer you myself. You belong with the armchair travelers already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code. Cancel anytime, one click.